What's going on, YouTube? It's Lieutenant Cade, also known as Alvin the Director. I'm a lieutenant stationed over here at Fort Liberty, North Carolina, formerly known as Fort Bragg, North Carolina. I've been here just a little bit over a month now, currently going on a little ruck march, but one of the highly requested videos that I get is Land Nav. So I kind of want to talk about Land Nav, more specifically Land Nav at ESB or EIB. In this video, we're going to highlight Land Nav and how to do your best on there. So to start out with Land Nav, it's best to take, some kind of Land Nav course. Don't go out there for the first time ever doing Land Nav. There's a bunch of NCOs that can teach you Land Nav. There are a bunch of videos on YouTube that's going to walk you through the steps of conducting Land Nav that are really, really good, really informative. So take a look at those before you even go out to EIB, ESB. Now, once you understand how to plot your points and everything, now it's time to actually get out and do Land Nav. It's something that I encourage NCOs to do during leaders time training. So before you actually go out to EIB, ESB, try to get out to a Land Nav course. Ask your NCOs or platoon leaders, platoon sergeants to schedule a date where y'all can conduct Land Nav. There's typically units that do Land Nav, throughout the year. So if your unit doesn't do anything, just look around and ask around for other units that could be conducting Land Nav and see if you can hop in on their training, because a lot of times units don't mind getting you spun up and helping you out with that. So try to get out and practice beforehand. The next thing I'd say with Land Nav is trust yourself. So there's a lot of Land Nav courses that are completely different. I did Land Nav in Alaska, where it's extremely hilly. I've done it at Fort Benning, at pretty much every course at Fort Benning. And those courses are a little bit different too. They're swampy. A lot of them have hills. So the Land Nav courses are completely different. But at the end of the day, if you know how to plot your points, you're going to be fine with being able to conduct Land Nav. Land Nav, the course might change a little bit. And some courses could be a little bit more difficult than others, because sometimes points are a lot further apart or in difficult areas. But if you know how to actually plot your points, you'll be fine, because you'll get to that area to find your point. So trust yourself. If you feel you start second guessing yourself and things like that, I don't know. I feel like that's when people get, lost the most, because they're oh, I knew which way I was supposed to be going. Then I decided to make a left or a right or turn around, and my point was literally, 10 meters ahead of me. So just because you don't see your point doesn't mean it's not there. So trust yourself. And for anybody that's really good at Land Nav, they can tell you the same thing. You have to trust yourself. Trust your pace count. Trust your training, and you'll get to your point. Next thing I'd say is take training seriously. So whenever you're at EIB, ESB, you'll see that there are a lot of soldiers who go out there and they're really not taking the training serious. They want to play around on their phones. They're not actively trying to find their points. They could just be walking around, with their buddies and things like that, instead of actually trying to learn. And if you're good at Land Nav, okay, yeah, that's one thing. But even if you're good at it, I consider myself pretty good at Land Nav. But even whenever I go out and practice, I take it serious. I don't use my phone. I go out there, I use the skills that I know about Land Nav, and I go out there and I find my points. So whenever it's time for testing, I'm good and I'm able to find my points. I have that confidence built up. It was I guess technically it was the second time that I've done Land Nav at Fort Wainwright, and it's literally on a huge slope. The entire course is just going straight uphill or straight downhill. There's no flat terrain at all on the course. So that was a challenge for me originally. And there's a lot of goat trails that aren't necessarily on your map. So you'll find that a lot with Land Nav, that you're going to find service roads, and it's not going to be on your actual map. So you have to trust yourself. You have to know exactly where you're at on the map at all times, so you don't get lost on one of those roads. The next thing I want to talk about is your pace count. So there's two different types of pace counts. You're going to have your walking pace count, which I'm doing now. I'm just walking like normal. You're going to walk for 100 meters. You're going to get your pace count. Then you're also going to have a running pace count. Now, the running pace count can vary, because typically whenever you're getting your running pace count, you're running on a flat surface. So your pace count is going to be a little bit different if you're running uphill or downhill. So you have to know, your pace counts, your compass. Make sure you have a good working compass. Calibrate your compass beforehand. Don't just grab someone's compass right before Land Nav without testing it to make sure it's, without testing to make sure that it's calibrated and everything, because if it's not, then that can throw you off. The next thing I'd say, make sure that is good is your pen. So whenever you're doing Land Nav, you're going to be marking your points with a pen. don't use too big of a pin. I seen one of my soldiers when I was doing the practice course, and he was lost, man. So this soldier, I mean, he's really good. He's a stud. He ended up passing his ESB. He didn't fail any assignments at all, like during the actual testing phase. So perfect 30 out of 30, all-star specialist. Like, he was really good. But when he was practicing land nav, I knew he was lost when I first passed him. I went to my point. I came back like an hour later, and he was still in like the same spot looking for his point. I said, hey, man. I said, what's going on? I wanted to help him out some. He told me he's looking for his point. So I looked at his map, and I was like, all right, let me see your protractor. Let me replot this just to make sure that you plotted it in the right spot. I plotted it with my own pen, and I realized that he was on the complete opposite side of the road, because like his pen was just so big that when he plotted his point, like it had him off by like, 50 to 70 meters. Like, I mean, it's something crazy. So that can throw you off a lot. So don't use one of those huge pens whenever you're plotting your points for land nav, because like you want to get as close to accurate as possible whenever you're plotting. Which leads me to my next point, and that's make sure that you have some kind of like clipboard or something like that for when you're actually plotting your points in land nav. I like to use one of the clipboards that you can actually put your grading sheet and put the map actually inside so it doesn't get wet. I've done land nav a few times, like in the rain, and it's not fun at all. If you've ever done land nav in the rain, you know it could be a beast. So make sure that you have something to protect your grade sheet. I've seen people fail because their grade sheet like went flying, or got too soggy, or you couldn't read anything, or you couldn't like see like where they punched stuff in, or they just made holes in their paper, which threw like the graders off because they didn't know if they actually went to that point or not, or like their map just got too soggy to where they couldn't see. So make sure you have something to protect your grade sheet and also protect your maps. And then the last thing that I would say is, whenever you're practicing land nav, like you can use your phone, like once you actually get to your point, to, confirm that you're in the right spot. I see a lot of people do that. That's a good technique to use, or use your Garmin once you actually get to the point and you have it, just to kind of build up that confidence that, hey, I'm in the right spot. But it's best to practice without your phone, without your Garmin. That way you're not cheating. You're not tempted to cheat at all. That way you're actually practicing in the right way, because whenever you're actually testing and doing land nav, you're not going to have those things. They're going to test, they're going to check to make sure that you don't have any phones, any watches. Like, they did a full like layout for us. I don't know if they do that everywhere, but for us, they did like a complete shakedown to make sure that people weren't like sneaking stuff in at all. And there were a lot of soldiers who ended up failing, land nav, but I'm pretty sure a handful of them were using their phones when they were actually doing land nav, and it didn't help them out at all when it came to a test day, because they didn't have that confidence built up. Now what I mean by having like your phone or your Garmin, if you're like just practicing and you get to your point and you just want to verify, hey, I actually got to this right point, okay, that's one thing. Like, that is a way to learn how to train. And then if you get to the point where you think you're at and you see that you're off, then you can replot without like, navigating with your phone or your Garmin to find out, where you're going next. But besides that, try to practice without that. Practice makes perfect. So try to practice the right way. So I hope this video helps anyone that's going out for their EIB, ESB, or if they're testing on land nav in general. If you have any specific questions about land nav and how to get better, go ahead and drop them in the comments below. You can also hit me up on Instagram at AlvinTheDirector, and I'll answer any questions that you have on there. I'm Alvin the Director, and I'm out.